One of the more Black Mirror elements of these AI models is training them based on text message data. In doing this, you create a model that responds just like the person it was trained from, essentially duplicating their personality. This opens up a lot of interesting and weird concepts that are possible. For example, training a model on a loved one's text messages after they've passed away, or using your own trained model to manage your dating conversation. I'll do a separate video on the ethics and considerations that should be taken into account when creating or using this technology. But today, I wanted to show you how you could duplicate your own personality using your text message data. I'll walk you through getting your text off your phone, cleaning up the data, and then fine-tuning the model that will produce some pretty shocking revelations about yourself. I'll show you how to take your duplicated personality bot and link it to a phone number that people can text, and it will respond as you. The first thing we need to do is move your personality from your text message conversations to a fine-tuned model ready to be implemented anywhere you want it. I've got all the code and the links in the video description, so go ahead and check it out. To start, we're going to need some text messages off our phones to put into Excel. You may be surprised to hear this is the hardest part of this whole process. There are programs you can pay for to get the messages off your phone, but I knew a lot of people would be turned away if I didn't at least have some method that was free. iMazing is one of those programs, but I think it's like $40 for a license. Again, you can use whatever method works best for you. This is just one approach for this part of the process. So I'm an Apple guy, so I have an iPhone and a MacBook, which are both synced and display my text messages. I started with the text message conversation I felt represented my personality, so close friends and family. I recommend using one-on-one text messages because group chats can get messy when you're trying to clean up data and format it. If you open a text message conversation in Messages on a Mac and then scroll up on the Mac, it will load the conversation for as long as you scroll. The more data you provide, the better your model. So use as much data as you're willing to handle. I started with about 2,000 text messages, and after cleaning it up, I ended up with about 500 lines of prompt and completion data. So to do this, open up your text message, scroll up as far as you want, and all of the text message data that you have, and then go to File and Print within the Messages app. And then I actually changed the paper dimension. So I go to Manage, and I set the width to 100 inches and the height to 24 inches. I'll explain why I do this in a minute. Once you've done that, you can print it to a PDF. And once we print that, this is what our text message will look like as a PDF. So now the reason I make it so wide is so that all of my friends' messages are on the left side and all of my texts are on the right side. From the original text message, you see they overlap some. And the way that the program is going to read that, it will split the page in half, and then it knows now everything on the right side is my text messages or my completions, and everything on the left side is the prompt from my friend texting me. The program I wrote to pull the text data out of the PDF is called PDF Text to CSV, and I put a link to it in the video description if you want to check it out. This program is far from perfect, so keep your expectations low. It's definitely a work in progress and really not the focus of this video. Quickly, this is how you can run the program though. To open up the Google Colab program and mount your Google Drive, when you do this, it'll say connect to Google Drive. Click OK. Once you've done that, you'll see your Google Drive appears in your folders here, and you're going to drag and drop the PDF that you created of your text messages into your drive. Press OK, and then click the three dots and select copy path. From there, the only things you need to update are you need to tell it where the file location is, so that path that you just copied, paste it right here, and then you need to tell it what you want the CSV file to be called. So I'm going to call it friendmessage.csv. The other thing you have to do is it's going to ask you for the total number of pages. So check your PDF and see how many total pages it is. So mine's 61, and put that in here. And then because we don't want our program to crash trying to process 61 pages all at once, we'll break it up into chunks. And so 5 is generally a good chunk to break this up into. And then when you run this, it will basically scan the PDF by splitting it down the middle, and it will put the messages on the right in the completion side and the messages on the left in the prompt side, and then output it to an Excel CSV file. Put a few filters in this code to remove images and web links because you can't really use that in your training data, but you will have to go through once you get your Excel sheet and clean up some of this. If you scroll down, the second portion of this code is if you have multiple Excel files that you would want to merge into a single prompt completion data set, and then it will output a single CSV file with prompt completion headers and your text messages split between the left and right side of the screen as a single file. So now we have our text in Excel and split from the person sending us a text to our reply or text to the person. For fine tuning, you need the data itself to be a prompt that elicits a completion. Normal people send pictures, links, and emojis, or I may start the conversation. You need to make sure that the right column is always a response to what the left column states. For example, if my friend texts me, should we bring whiskey to Joshua Tree this weekend? And I respond, we can't make old fashions without whiskey. Yeah, let's get some. This is a good prompt completion combination. A bad combo is if I then say, wait, we won't be able to have ice in the desert, which will be on the completion side of the data, and he replies back, I'll throw some ice in my cooler in response, but it shows up in the prompt. You want to make sure your texts are always a response to something the other person has said or asked. I don't have a good way of automating this portion, so if someone has ideas, please put them in the comments. I would love to come up with a better way to do this. I ended up spending some time just deleting lines and only keeping the good prompt completion combos I had for my text message conversations. When you're done, make sure you save this as a .csv file in the UTF-8 format. That's very important. Once you have your data formatted, we can fine-tune an OpenAI model with text message data. I won't go into the full details here on how fine tuning works because I have a beginner video covering this that breaks it down pretty good. But to get started, we'll use a fine tuning code template that I created, which you can find in the video description. It's titled Fine Tuning Template. Once you have that open, you'll need to put in your API key from OpenAI. Again, I have a video on how to do this if you don't know how. I'll link it above. Next, we need to link to the CSV file that we just created so that our program can pull all that information into our program. To do that, we'll need to mount our Google Drive. You'll go up here to Mount Drive and click that. And again, it'll pop up and ask you if you want to connect your Google Drive. Once that completes, you should see your Google Drive then in your files on the left here. Once your Google Drive folder loads, you'll want to drag the cleaned up CSV file that you just created and put it into your Google Drive. You'll see that it appears here, and we can press these three dots and copy the path to it. Now we can paste the file path on the line that says file path equals. Next, we'll name our file path for the cleaned up data. I suggest just pasting the file path and then putting a -p for pandas, which will clean up the data so that OpenAI's fine tuning can read it. This line will actually create a cleaned up Excel CSV file that will show up then in our folder. So we need to run our code to see that. Once that runs, the cleaned up data will show up as the -p in your folder here. Press the three dots and copy path. Once you've copied the path, paste it here in the OpenAI Tools Fine Tuning Prepared Data line, and then run that. This program looks to format our data in a way that OpenAI expects. So they'll ask you prompts for how it can improve and clean up the data. So this one says it found 3 duplicate rows. I'm going to say yes. Remove those. It asks if I want a suffix separator to all the prompts. I'm going to say yes. And then it says, do I want to add end to all the completions? I'll say yes. White space characters at the beginning, yes. And then it says, do I want to create a new JSON file for my cleaned up data? And I'll say yes. And then that will run. Here it's telling me for a curry model to train, it'll take about 26 minutes to train my data. That's fine. And now to run our fine tuning, we'll actually copy the file path that it has here with the JSON L at the end. Copy that and put that as the create file path right here. Once we've pasted our file path, we'll run this to create the training file and then run the training file to label ID. Now this is the line where we define which model we'll use to fine tune with. So the best model is actually DaVinci or Curry for what we're trying to do here. For purposes of this video, I'm going to do DaVinci. The number of epochs being 4 is a good number for this type of application. Once you've defined the model and the number of epochs, you can run it. Now to check on the status of our fine-tuning file, which is fine-tuning on OpenAI servers, we can take the file name after created fine-tune FT and then a long string. Copy that and then paste it after ID equals and then run that, and you'll be able to see the status of your fine-tuning. So for instance, I see here this is going to cost me $1.73. You can continue to run this line to keep getting updates on the status of your fine-tuning. I'm going to let this run and then I'll come back when it's done.
Few moments later.
All right, when that finishes, you'll see a line that says uploaded model, and then it'll have the model that you used and then FT and some string of numbers. So I use DaVinci. This is your fine-tuned model, so don't lose this. You just paid to train and create the model, so keep it safe. Copy the name and then paste it in the next section where you can test it out. We're going to paste it here in the line that says model equals, and then you can change the prompt to test out your fine-tuned model. So to test this, I'm going to say, do you enjoy camping? We'll let that run, and the response is yes, I love it, which is true. We can try something a little more. Are your thoughts on the future of AI? I think AI is going to change the world a lot in a lot of ways, both good and bad, but I think we'll figure it out. Pretty accurate. So now we have a working fine-tuned model. Again, this here is our fine-tuned model, so we don't want to lose this. So you can copy that and put it in a note or something just so you don't lose it. So now we have our fine-tuned model that we can incorporate into a Python program that looks for text messages and runs them through our model to generate a response, and then text back with that response. Before we make our program, we need a phone number for a bot that we can interact with using an API. For this, I'm going to use Twilio, which I am not sponsored or affiliated with. If you go to twilio.com and click Start for free, then we can set up an account with them and log in. I'm going to do that. It'll ask you to verify your email. You'll have to use your personal number so that they know you're not a bot creating this. So put in a phone number here and validate your phone number. Once you have your account set up, I recommend using the free trial to test it out first, and you can always upgrade it later if you want. Here it will ask you how you plan to use your Twilio account. I said for SMS, and then it says, what do you plan to build with Twilio? And I said IVR and bots. How do you want to build? You could say with code, and then what coding language, and I selected Python. Would you like them to host my code? Doesn't really matter. We're going to use Google Cloud. All right, after that loads, they'll offer you a phone number. So click this button, Get Phone Number, and you'll see as part of the free trial, you actually get $15.50 for any of the API calls that they charge for as a way to try it out. So then this phone number right here is the phone number that our bot will use when we link it to our OpenAI fine-tune model. So now you can keep your Twilio account open on a separate tab, but open up a Google Colab notebook, and we're actually going to make our program now. So we'll go to colab.research.google.com, and from here we'll create a new notebook. So for this, we're going to use a Python module called Flask, which allows you to run applications from your Python code. In addition to Flask, we'll use OpenAI's API call and then Twilio to handle our text messages. So for the first line, we'll just do Flask, Twilio, and OpenAI. I'll also import regular expression here, so do a comma RE after OpenAI. This lets us manipulate text strings, which we'll need. And for this, we don't actually need to run it because we're going to download it and then host it on our Google Cloud platform. Next, we'll need to initialize the Flask program. So do a new line. So we'll do app equals Flask, and then in parentheses, these are 2 underscores, name, and then 2 underscores. Now we're going to link our Twilio account with our program. So first, do Twilio SID equals, and then in parentheses with single quotes, and then Twilio underscore token equals, and then parentheses single quotes. Now go back to your Twilio account that you had open in your other tab and find your SID and token number. If you scroll down, they'll be located right here in your account information, and they let you just copy it. So my account SID will go in the first one, and then my token, I'll copy here and paste in the token tab. Next, we're going to link our OpenAI API key. So we're going to put the same line that we did here before, and I like to generate a new API key for different applications, so I would use a new key for this. Again, I have a video on where to locate your OpenAI key if you don't know where it's at. I'll link to it up above. Now we're going to do the meat of our program here. So we're going to create an app that is looking for the /SMS, then we'll define SMS here. So the first line is going to get the message body from the incoming text message. So it sees the incoming message and takes the body of that message. Next, we'll tell it where to send that message. So we want it to run through our fine-tuned model that we just created. So to do that, we'll do response equals OpenAI dot completion dot create open parenthesis, and then model equals, and then double quotes. And this is where you're going to paste the model that you just fine-tuned. So go back to the program where we fine-tuned our model and copy it, and then we'll paste that as the model that we'll use. One limitation of this is you can't use the chat completions API call from OpenAI with a fine-tuned model. So we won't be able to maintain the chat history for the responses. There are ways to maintain the chat history, but I'll leave that to you to play around with, or maybe I'll make a separate video later. Next, we want the prompt for our model to be the incoming message. So we'll do incoming underscore message, and we'll define the max token as 50. That should be enough. And then temperature we'll set to 0.1, and then we've already closed that. Cool. Now we'll call the list choices and return the first result, and then remove the blank space surrounding it. So do response underscore text equals response bracket single quote choices single quote bracket first choice, it'll be text close bracket, and then dot strip, which will remove the white space on both sides. This next section is to clean up the response that we get from OpenAI, which can sometimes have extra text based on the training data. You may not need this, but it addresses some of the junk that I've seen in the responses I was getting. So this first line removes the hashtag symbol, which I was occasionally receiving in some of my responses. This line removes any extra end or END text that was added from our training data and made it into the response. This line prevents two responses from being output. A few times I would get answers and then a second answer below it. So this ensures that you only get one answer to your prompt. And this last line prevents any underline occurrences from being given as a response. Again, this is just some of the examples of responses that I received that I wanted to filter out. So after our filters, we need to call on the Twilio API. So we'll do Twilio underscore RESP equals messaging response, and then do open and closed parentheses there. This line is creating a new instance of the messaging response from Twilio and then constructs a response to the incoming text message that it receives. After that, we'll do Twilio underscore RESP dot message, and then in parentheses, we'll do response underscore text, close parentheses. So this creates the text message reply back with our text response that we defined above. And then finally, we'll do return str or string Twilio underscore RESP. This just returns the Twilio response as a string. This last line here is just code to make our program more robust. It helps define a port for Google Cloud. I wouldn't worry too much about this, but I include it just to ensure that the code works. So now we have the program written. It will take incoming text and run it through our fine-tuned model and then send out a response. Now we just need to host this on the Google Cloud. So to host our code on the Google Cloud, we first can go to console.cloud.google.com. You'll need to log in or create an account if you don't already have one. And once you log in, you're going to want to create a new project. So go to select a project and create new project. I'm going to name mine Texting Me. You can leave the organization blank and then click create. So select the project once you've created it. You want to make sure that your project shows here in the top so that you're operating within your project. Next, we need to activate the Cloud Run and Cloud Build API. To do this, we're going to navigate to APIs and services. So go to the three lines here, APIs and services, and then go to library. Now in here, we can search for the APIs that we need to activate. So search Cloud Run, and you'll see that one right here at the top, and click enable. This will say that it requires a billing account. Go ahead and enable billing, create billing account, agree, continue. I'm just going to put other. And then this will ask for your card details, but they have a free trial that won't charge you. So you'll set up your billing account. It won't charge you, and they'll actually give you $300 in free credit to play around with this. So it's not too bad. So once you fill all that information in, click Start My Free Trial. And I'm just going to say Close. So then make sure Cloud Run API is enabled. Go back to Library, and when you search, we need to enable Cloud Build API. If you type in Cloud Build, it should be the top result right here. Click that, and then press Enable. So now we need to create a service account and download the key. So go to the navigation menu and go to I am an admin and then service accounts. From here, you'll go to create service account. Set the details for the service account, come up with a name, and then let it generate the ID. So I'm going to say text me bot, and then you can leave the description blank and then press create and continue. Now we have to select the role. So find and add the Cloud Run admin. So you can just type in Cloud Run admin, select that, and then add another role, and we'll do service account user. So search service account user, and then scroll down, make sure select service account user, and then also add storage admin. Once you've added all three roles, click continue. Then leave this page blank and click done. Now, Google Cloud Run uses a container images to run applications. So you'll need to create a Docker file for your application, then use Cloud Build to build the image and Cloud Run to deploy it. I know that sounds like a lot, but I'll walk you through each step. So first, we need to create the three files required for our program to run. There's a requirements.txt file, a Docker file, and then our Python file that has our code in it. So I recommend creating a folder on your desktop. I'm going to call mine TextMeBot, and we'll save these three files in this folder so they're easy to find. So first, to create the Python file, we'll go back to the code that we created, and first I want to make sure I name it. So I'm going to say TextMeBot. at the top here. Once you've done that, go to File, Download, and make sure you select the .py. That's a Python file. Once that downloads, put that in our folder that we just created. For the requirements file that we need, you need to open up a text editor. So on Mac, you can use text edit and just create a new document. This is how we'll load the programs that our Python code will use. So first we'll do Flask, next we'll do Twilio, and then make sure it's lowercase and that spell check doesn't correct it. OpenAI, lowercase, and G Unicorn. So these are the 4 programs that will run with our Python code. Once you've done that, you need to make sure that it's plain text. So you can go to Format, Make Plain Text. That's really important. Your program won't work if it's not plain text. So again, Format, Make Plain Text. Now go to File, Save, and then we'll save this file in the folder that we just created and do lowercase requirements.txt. Plain text, UTF-8, that's all correct. Okay, then you can close that, and you'll see that in our folder then. Now for the Docker file. To do that, we'll create a new file within TextEdit again, and I recommend just copying this verbatim or getting it from the video description. I'll put this information in a file in the video description, but once you've got it pasted, you can see it's a rich text field. We need to format, make plain text. Okay, once we have that as plain text, then we need to save this as a capital D Docker file, and then press enter. And then you should see it pop up here. And for the Docker file, we actually don't want the .txt after it, so change the file name to remove that and then press enter. It's gonna say, are you sure? Yeah, remove it. Within the Docker file, you'll need to go in and change where it says Python code title and make it the name without the .py of what you titled your Python code. So I called mine TextMeBot, and then it's :app. So make sure you change that and then save, and then you can close it. Now we'll go back to the Google Cloud Console. And you may not need to do this next step, but just to ensure that everyone's code will work, we're gonna make sure that the cloud project is authenticated with your Google account. So search Cloud Shell and let that load. Say continue. Now we can open terminal here and type in gcloud space auth login. Press enter. It'll say you're already authenticated. Do you want to run this inside Google Shell? Do you wish to proceed? I'm going to say yes. Now it's going to say go to the following link in your browser to validate. One of the things when you're operating within this terminal window, when you highlight stuff, it will actually copy it for you. So copy that and then paste it in a new window. Select my account. It'll say, do you want to allow this? Yes. And then you'll get this authentication code. Copy that. Go back to your Google console, and where it says enter authentication code, do Control V, or paste it, and then press enter. So now we have the Google console set up. I'm going to hit Open Editor to go back to the Google Shell. This is a little easier user interface, and it has the drag and drop ability. I'm going to create a new folder here and call it TextMeBot folder. And hit OK. And then I'm going to open the 3 files that we created earlier and drag them into the folder that I just created. And you'll see them load right here. So now that we've got our 3 files inside of our TextMeBot folder, we'll right-click the Python file and say Open in Terminal. Now you'll see the project ID is actually in parentheses. We're going to need that for this next step. So to build our Dockerfile image, we're going to do gcloud space builds space submit space -- tag space gcr.io, and then we need to put our project name, which is the one in parentheses above there. So for me, it's texting me -390-121, and then do a slash, and then name your image file. So I'm just going to say text me image, and then press enter. And that's going to run. And once it's done, you should see a status of success. All right, so that worked. Status success. Great. So now we need to deploy the image that we just created. To deploy, we're just going to do gcloud space run space deploy space -- image space, and then copy this image right here. Leave out the +1 more, and then paste it there and press enter. Now it's going to ask you to name the service. So I'm going to say TextMeBot, press enter. It'll ask you which time zone you're in. So there's a lot of options here. I'm in Los Angeles, so I'm going to say US West 1, so 34, enter. Allow unauthenticated invocations. Yes. And now it's going to deploy. While that's running, just as a quick note, if you need to make changes to your Python file, you can edit it directly here and then just do File, Save All. You need to run the gcloud build submit portion again, along with the gcloud run deploy, what we did previously. And that will update the image with your updated Python code. Now it says our TextBot has been deployed and is serving 100% of the traffic. And then it gives you this URL right here. This is our app that's being hosted now on the Google Cloud. So what we'll do is highlight this and copy it, go back to our Twilio account and click on phone numbers and manage. go to active numbers, and then click the phone number here, and it will load the settings associated with that number. And if you scroll down, this is the voice configuration, but we want the messaging configuration. And you'll see this URL right here. Delete that and paste the URL that we just copied, and then do /SMS, and then save configuration. And congratulations, you now have a working texting bot. With Twilio trial, it will put that this is a trial in front of your text message until you pay for the phone number. If you upgrade, the text messages are 0.0079 cents to send a text message, and then another 0.0079 cents to receive. So a total of 1.6 cents per text back and forth. But that's if you upgrade your account. They give you some free $15.50 to play around with before you decide if you want to upgrade or not. All right, now it's time to test it out. So let's text our fine-tuned model that is based on our text messages. I'm gonna say, what is your top fear? I think my top fear is losing someone I love. I guess that's kind of a love fear. Pretty accurate. I typically have existential fear. Next, I'm gonna ask it, how do you feel knowing I made you from a bunch of text messages? I've never felt more powerful. I can't argue with that. Then last, let's do what drives you in life? Getting likes and subscribers. Oh, that's a good reminder. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Okay, I faked that. It's not that depressing. It actually says, that's a tough one. I guess just seeing people succeed and be happy. I hate seeing people struggle. Yeah, not bad. Yeah, this thing is pretty impressive. So you can see this is pretty cool, and it makes for a fun party trick or use in a business for managing customers. But you can also see how this could start to raise some ethical questions. As I was making this, I realized, oh, I could make one for my buddy. How fun is that? And then I thought, he may not want that or be comfortable with me making copies of him to interact with. We're essentially digitally duplicating a human's personality to some extent and giving them a medium to communicate that's very familiar to us. Text messages. In interacting with these models, there's a magic that happens when using a large data set where the response feels curated from the actual person they were trained from. It's easy to forget these responses are just based on statistical predictive models and only represent the person they were trained from. I'll admit, I'm a little skeptical of the AI overlords taking over humanity, but this project certainly opened my eyes to the new world we have now with these large language models and some of the new ideas we have to consider as we plow forward into the future. I hope you found this useful, and I've got a couple other projects like this in the works, so make sure you subscribe so you get notified when those videos come out. Thanks for watching.